Hello again everyone, Ken from Whittling Woods, back again with another whittling wood carving tutorial. This is a three-part series. Today will be part two. This is the figure we're going to be whittling in this three-part series. Last week, which the link will be up here, we did the rough out. This week we're going to be doing the detail. So all the the wrinkles, the facial features, the hair, the stuff that you use a smaller knife for, and you get in there and you whittle all the details in a figure. These are longer videos because I take things step by step. I'm gearing them kind of towards beginners, people who maybe are interested in getting into the hobby and maybe interested in whittling figures like this. This is my version of how I do things. This is a 4-inch piece of basswood. It's 4 inches long, 1.25 inches. So that's what we use to do the rough out. And you'll see the beginning of this video what the rough out looks like. And again, like I said, the link up here if you haven't seen the last week's video to see how we got to that point. But anyway, that's just wanted to give you a quick look once again at the final figure, what the end product of this series will be. And more importantly, we have this here knife. As I mentioned in last week's video, this knife was made by one of my viewers, Blackbart, aka Mark, who generously made this knife specifically with the intention of having me give it away to some lucky viewer. I gave some instructions last week on how to get in the running for this knife, but I'll mention them quickly again. Just leave a comment saying you're interested in the Blackbart 04 knife. I'll have the instructions right up here as well. So just leave a comment in if you last week's video, this video, and the next one, just so I know that people are interested in they really want the knife. That's the requirement. Just do that, and maybe a week or two after the final painting video, which will be next week, I'll do a random pick of one of those viewers and commenters and ship the knife out to you. So there you go. That's about it. I'm going to get everything set up for today's and this week's video, and I will be right back. Okay, before we begin this week's whittle, part two, I wanted to show you what we're going to be whittling today. This is the final product. So last week we did the rough out, and this is what we're going to be shooting for today. So I just wanted to give you a quick look at it before we begin. If you're interested, stay tuned. It'll be another, probably long video, but I'm just going to be putting all the detail that you see in here into the rough out figure that we did last week. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned and let me know what you think at the end. Alrighty, I'll get everything set up and I will be right back. Last week we did this rough out of this figure here. And in this video, we're going to start adding some details. We'll get them finished up and ready for painting in this video. Okay, so let's look and see what we want to do here. Let's maybe take back the hair. The hair, as you can see, is a little blocky in the back here. So what I like to do is just kind of thin that out just a bit. And I kind of keep in mind when I'm doing this thin out to add a little texture in cuts. I don't like long straight cuts. I try to make a little texture in cuts, because in the end I think when we add a little bit more detail to the hair, that also helps as well. Sometimes I'll come in and I'll do some scooping out cuts like this as well. It just adds a little bit more texture and a little bit more variety to the hair, and just makes it look a little more interesting. Again, we're just starting this this part here, the hair. We're going to finish the hair up towards the end of the video. But I just like to bring it in a little bit more in the back over here. It's a little high on top. We can bring that down as well. Again, I like to keep these faceting cuts in there. So when I add the final detail, the final texturing cuts in there, it just adds to the overall variety. And then when we go to paint it, we have a lot more facets we can highlight with some dry brushing. And again, next week we'll do the painting of this whittle. You can also split part the hair, so to speak. So we're going to go kind of right in the middle here. You can see the original line we made. Let's get an initial cut in here. Now remember, when you're doing this here, this is cutting into the end grain, so it's a little bit, it can be a little tricky at times to do, so just take your time with that. And Don't force it. Now what I like to do is start looking at the rest of the figure. What do we want to do? This pants, we're going to start thinning these out just a bit more. So we're going to kind of come in here and start just removing a little bit more wood. And again, I like to kind of texture it with little facets as well. What I want to do is try to keep a little bit of wood down in this area over here, because what we're going to try to do is create the indication that the pants are kind of bunching up a little bit at the bottom. So we're just kind of, you see how that is on the bottom there? Kind of scooping that area out. Now if you recall, like I mentioned, he's got his hands in his pockets, so we want to leave a little bit of wood in this area over here to give the illusion that, you know, he's got his hands in there. So we're going to kind of thin the wood out around that. You know, think how it would be if, you know, your hand's in the pocket, and you can kind of see how it's beginning to look like there's something in a pocket. Again, I like to leave a little bit of wood in this area as well, because we want to sort of give the feel that that the pants are kind of bunching up a little bit over there as well. But we'll add a little bit more depth with a few cuts, wrinkled cuts, that'll accentuate that as well as we get closer to the end. Kind of see how a little bulge for the hand and a little bulge for the where his pants are beginning to bunch up. And we're going to follow that kind of that idea right around here. I might switch to a slightly smaller knife in a bit here, just so I can get in there a little bit more. With a longer blade, it's great for, you know, roughing out and reaching, especially with this blade. It's nice and long and it's kind of thin. You can reach into spots when you're doing rough outs and cleaning stuff out. But you know, sometimes you're going to need a slightly smaller blade to kind of finish up the detail work, or use a, you know, medium-sized blade to, you know, do the whole whittle, one or the other. And kind of see how we're moving along here. We're adding it makes the pants look not so blocky, and you know, adds a bit of character to them, I think. You know, again, these are relatively small whittles. They're not highly articulated type of, no, I don't know if articulated the right word, but they don't have a lot of, I mean, they're pretty straight up and down. You know, like I was mentioning in the last video, if you look at some of the, you know, professionally done caricature kind of carving things, they have a lot more. The hands are out in different locations, the body's curving. There's a lot more, you know, and typically they're using slightly larger pieces of wood, but even if they're using smaller pieces of wood, you know, sometimes they use a variety of different tools to accomplish all that. You know, we're using a knife here and trying to keep things relatively simple, because sometimes you just want to do a simple whittle. That's, you know, that's a little bit more approachable. Work your way up to that level at some point. Although I've been whittling for a number of years, and I would not consider myself a highly skilled wood carver or whittler. I just enjoy it and have fun. Or at least I try to. I'm working at thinning this part out just a bit more, his chest and belly area. Like I said, this is a time where you're you know, you're looking at how you want your figure to look overall. And again, what like I mentioned, I'd like to do these little type of, I'll kind of show you here, this little type of scooping cuts where I come in here and I roll my knife and I create these little hollowed areas. And it kind of, if you think of your own clothes, it sort of mimics wrinkles and folds in your clothes as you're, as they're tucking into a shirt. So you kind of do that, and it gives just enough of a look to make that look, it just adds a little bit more character to the figure. And we'll wind up having to do the same thing on the back over here as well. And I constantly, I'm looking, since I'm kind of doing this, not following a pattern or any specific drawing or anything like that. I kind of keep looking at the figure as I'm doing it and altering it and changing it in ways that I like. Again, we're just pulling in his shoulders a bit. When I go in here, I'm coming in and I'm just bringing in where his shoulders would come underneath his beard and the back of his hair and the back over here as well. Just bringing it in just a bit. And then just rounding up the top. Last week I mentioned, whether or not we're going to keep a beard. I know this guy strikes me as someone who definitely would have a beard. So what I'm going to do here is make sure we leave some wood over here. Over here, his beard's going to be kind of coming up around his mustache and everything. Kind of like so. Something like that. And then maybe we'll maybe give him a little bit of a, when we do the mustache, maybe we'll kind of bring it up a little bit so it kind of looks like he's maybe smiling a bit. So I'm just kind of drawing this in. It'll kind of come up like so a little bit. Now for this, we'll have to obviously come in with a smaller knife. So I'm going to grab this small North Bay Forge knife that I have and start looking at that. Before I kind of begin that, I like to sort of get the nose to a state where I think it's ready for kind of finished. So in terms of the nose, and I've done separate videos on whittling a nose and all that kind of stuff. I add a little bit of an indication of a nostril. So what I do here is we're going to put a line, and I'm going to show you kind of over here, from the base of the nostril up to the bridge of the nose. Maybe come about a third of the way up or so. Like over there, and then the same thing on that side. So you got two little, if you can kind of see where I drew them in there. We're going to come in with our knife, and we're just going to put a line straight into the wood, like that. Just not overly deep. Just put a line in there, and then we can cut slightly up to that, and then slightly down to that. And it just creates a bit of a nostril area. And then we'll do the same thing over here. Put a knife straight in the wood on that line. Cut up to it. And cut down to it a little bit. All right. And then I take the edges here, right in that area where the end of those cuts. And I sort of just roll my knife up a little bit, blend that cut in. And then I flip it around. I'm going to have to get my leg in the way here. And I do the same thing on that side. I just take my knife and I kind of blend that cut in. All right. I'm just going to do a little bit more on this side. There you go. And that's a basic nose. The other thing I sometimes do, and you can kind of see it from that angle, is I'll come in here on the top part and I'll just remove a little bit more wood in here. Just to thin the bridge part of the nose out on both sides. There you go. Now it looks like he's got a more finished nose kind of thing. Roll it around little bit more. I'm sorry for the odd angle here. It's the only way I can get in here. I'm taking small cuts to roll that up. There you go. You can see it from the side, from both sides. All right. And then sometimes I'll undercut the bottom of the nose just a bit. All right. I'll put a line from that nostril cut that we made on both sides. I'm going to come down into the beard area. I'm not going to go too far into that cut. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side over here. I'm just going to come down from that nostril area. I'm going to try to hold here so you can see, and just put my knife in the wood, make a little cut in there. And then I'm going to come back right along the edge of the nostril, right in there. And I'm going to put a little line, again, right down to that. And then same thing on this side. We're creating a little triangular piece of wood we're going to remove. And we did it on that side as well. We want to come in here underneath and basically remove that triangle. And it just kind of deepens the nose just a bit more. And then we're going to come in over here and do the same thing. And just remove that little triangle. Typically, if he wasn't having, if there wasn't a beard there, a mustache, you'd bring that down a little bit further. But there you go. Kind of gives the indication of a little bit of smile lines in his face over there. All right, kind of sets the nose back a little bit as well. All righty. So now let's put the line in here for the beard, and I'm going to come right along that line, going right up. Actually, let's do it this way from the nose area. We're going to come right up there, like so. Kind of see that? And I'll do the same thing on this side over here. We'll kind of come from there and following along my line. And I come up right in there. And then we're just going to come back in here and remove a little bit of wood above that line. Got a little frayed wood in that side over there. You can kind of see. So there you go. So now we've got, we're kind of cleaning up this area in here to leave wood for the beard and mustache. So now we got basically his cheeks, his beard coming into his face, and we'll start working on the mustache area a little bit. For the mustache, we're just going to follow, again, we'll just follow the lines we just made. I'm going to put my leg in here, and I'm just going to kind of come in here and make a little cut up and around, like so. And then maybe just take out a little bit of wood below that. And we'll do the same thing on this side. Come around here with a knife in the wood and curve that mustache up and around. And just take out the wood underneath of it. Kind of like so. We'll just kind of blend the areas in on the sides a little bit together. So there you go. What I like to do now is I come in here and I deepen the little mouth area. So I put my knife on that side. I put my knife on that side, and then I just pull out a little bit of wood right in there, right in this, right where we just made these two triangles. So it just deepens it a little bit more. You kind of see there. That's the initial cut we make. What I like to do then is create the indication of a lip. And let me try to draw that in for you. It might help a little bit more. I'm going to come in here and make a line, and over here and make a line. Angled slightly. You can kind of see that. So we're going to kind of do the same thing we did with the mouth over here. We're going to put a cut in here underneath, and then the cut on the other side, slightly angled down too. Just did that other cut, like so. So we got two lines in there, and then we're just going to go back here and remove that wood. I'll leave a little triangle of wood right in there. And I kind of just round off the bottom of that triangle bit. So now it looks like he's got a little bit of a mouth under there, or lip, lower lip. I'm just deepening the cuts along the mustache and cheek area. So it looks like, the hair is kind of going up and around. I don't know, I come back and I come back and I clean up my cuts after I'm done. But I like to get the, there you go. So he's a happy, smiling guy. Then we can start just adding that same kind of texturing to the beard itself. So I just kind of come back in here, and I'm coming around and roll my knife like we were doing before. Again, that's all they are. They're just little kind of texturing cuts there. All right. We'll come back in and we'll do the final work on the hair when we at the end. Let's give him a little, while we're working on the face here, let's give him a little indication. We're going to do very basic eyes here on this guy. Nothing too complicated. So what I do is I come in here and I just deepen that a little bit more. All right, on both sides. I just went in here and I just kind of deepened it. You sort of want the deep spot to be on the face, right in there. So go in there and kind of make sure that's pretty deep. On both sides, you can kind of take out little notches of wood over there. All right, and then we can just again, we'll draw it here. We'll come from this side up a little ways and down a little ways. Little triangle there. And then we'll come on this side up a little ways and down a little bit as well. Kind of like so. So what I do is, again, these are kind of relatively simplified eyes. I'll just put my knife right in there on that cut that I just made. Kind of see that in there. And then I come on this side and bring it down, put a little stop cut in there as well. All right. And then we can kind of come back on top of that and remove a little of that wood. So we just kind of created a little bit of a triangle area, kind of like what we did with the mouth over there. And then I come in here and I just notch off the top of the triangle a bit more so it looks more rounded. Kind of like so. I don't know if you can you see that? They're not all that difficult to do. They're not all that hard. It'll just give you a little bit of wood in there that you can use for for an eye. You can paint it white and then put a little dot in the center and you're good to go. And then we're going to do the same thing on this side. I'm going to put my knife in the wood over there. And then I'm going to come down. I'm going to do the same thing over here. Bring my knife right down in there. Come back on the top of that cut and just scoop out the wood over top of there. And then we'll come out and we'll scoop out a little bit of wood over top of here as well. And then come back, do it this way here. Hopefully you can see. There's the top of that triangle. We'll just nip off the top just a little bit. I'm doing it at an angle. I normally wouldn't be doing this at, so it's not coming out. Go back this way. There you go. And then we could split the brow area. So I put my knife right in the middle of the wood over here. Go here and here. Just to split that, and then we can start forming like eyebrow area. And I go from that split, and I guess just kind of work my way around on that side, and the same thing on this side. And I just trim the hair back, trim the forehead back a little bit on top of that. You can kind of see. It gives him nice, he's got bushy, nice long hair, bushy beard, bushy eyebrows. He's tired, he's loving life. That's why he's smiling. Something like that. All you're doing is basically leaving a little bit of wood in that area to paint when you get to that stage. So it's just, you could just paint them on directly if you want, flatten that whole area. But I like giving it a little dimension like that. You can kind of see from both angles. Maybe we'll round him out a bit more. He doesn't need to be so pointy like that. Again, I'm trying to add enough detail without going overboard. If you're brand new to whittling, I'm trying to figure out ways to make this approachable for people who haven't whittled before. I'm just tucking the forehead back underneath the hair by going in here and moving it underneath a little bit further. If you can kind of see over there. Again, remember that forehead slope like that, and the nose. They should sort of mimic each other. There's our figure so far. What I like to do is kind of come in here too, and I sort of create a little bit of a convex nature to the eye itself. So I take a little bit out from each end. So over here and over there. So I just kind of come in here, just to make it a little bit more convex. So it kind of rolls out a little bit. You don't really have to do that, but it kind of helps a little bit, I think. So did it on the inside. I'm going to just kind of come slightly on the outside over here and remove a little bit of wood there as well. I'll do the same thing on this side. What I do is I come underneath the eye and I create just a little bit of bagginess by rolling up my knife towards the eye. You can formally put a lower lid in here by cutting in, and kind of like we did with the top, but honestly I don't think it's worth it in this figure, because he's smiling, his cheeks are kind of bunched up. So I'm just kind of rolling my knife up real lightly, just to create a little bit of a, kind of like what we do on the clothes, a little bit of bunching up of skin in that area. So I just kind of roll up into that. And I do the same thing on this side. Just rolling my knife up into that area. There you go. All right, so we got a basic face in there on our guy. Not too big a deal. All right, now that we got our smaller knife out, let's start finishing up this this little whittle here. We'll start doing some other little detail cuts. I'm going to keep rounding out his clothes, his shirt sleeves, his pants. So I'm just kind of coming over on the ends here, and I'm just, you can see, I'm just slightly rounding him over a little bit more. Just create a little roundness in there, that's all. Same thing on the top part. Come back here. Just round it out a bit. You kind of see how that's in. And then we'll do the same thing over here. Same kind of thing. I don't think this is all that complicated or involved here. Most people can handle it. You can kind of see it. It begins to make the sleeves look less square, and you know. Again, we're doing it in a figure that's only 1.25 inches, so you know, there's only so much, but you try to do as best you can to round it out as much as possible. Maybe thin them out at the bottom over here. Again, you want to leave a little bit of more wood down on the side because it's probably bunching up as it's going into his pocket. So I kind of come in here and I bring my knife up, kind of curving it up like that. And then I just remove the wood there, or put a little cut in there, and you know, take the wood out. So you can kind of see it's a little bit more wood in this area over here. We can kind of do the same thing on the back as well. It'll also help add a little bit more roundness to the piece if you do it that way. There you go. That'll allow us to play around with wrinkles and all that kind of stuff in there as well. So we'll do the same thing over here. And then over here as well. I'll kind of come in here. And you're going to see I'm curving my knife up and around. And then we can start doing kind of similar ideas on the pants here. I know this kind of gets maybe a little bit tedious to watch, you know, because a lot of these are just refining cuts that you make. When you get to this point, when you have wood, because you're going down on both sides, you're reaching a point where the wood is just going to keep tearing out if you keep at it. This is when you start maybe kind of coming in here and adding some little bit deeper creases in the pants. So I kind of come in here, you know, something like that. That'll kind of take care of some of that tearing out of the wood. For the when you have fabric coming together, like at the elbow or the pants over on the back of the knee over here. You're going to want to create a kind of a cut like that. We'll do it over there, and then we'll also do one kind of over here. And then I'll show you what I'll do. For here, we're going to put a cut there and a cut there. So just 2 cuts in the wood, cut up to it, cut down to it. And the same thing on the top part over there as well. So you kind of see it's creating a bit more like the fabric is bunching up in that area. And you'll do the same thing over here. Come over here and over here, and you can kind of move that wood as well. It creates little fold indications in there. I'm going to see how that goes now. Just adds a bit more detail to your piece. You can see it's creasing there, it's creasing in the arm. I think it just adds enough detail. Gives it indication. There's simple ways to create these little wrinkle lines in your fabric like that, you know. And when you paint it, it's nice too because they, you know, you can deepen the color in those crevices more, and it adds more dimension. The problem sometimes I find with sometimes when you do whittles, if you don't add enough depth and facets and everything's flat. Again, nothing wrong with flat plane carving. That's not really what I'm referring to. But if everything's flat, when you paint it, it comes out very flat. And you know, in general, you want to add a little bit more depth. So all these little creases, all those little facets that we do in the clothes, add that kind of dimension. So when the shadow hits it, you can see how it looks darker in there and over there. Those are what you're kind of after. You can see the faceting on the face already. Just rather than cutting it all flat and just maybe using a V-gouge to create like hair strands, that's fine. But it's, you know, if you add a little bit more faceting to there, it adds an extra level of dimension that kind of makes the piece look a little more, you know, for me at least, it makes it a little more interesting to whittle and to look at. Now I'm just coming along and I'm adding additional creases to the bottom. Like we mentioned, we sort of started on the other side over here. Just kind of adding little cuts like that, just all around the bottom. It makes it look like the pants are kind of bunching up a little bit. You kind of see from the side over here. Again, just adds a little bit more dimension to your piece. None of these are mandatory, obviously, to do. Well, nothing's mandatory in this hobby. You can do whatever you like, except keeping your knife sharp. You have to always do that. And we'll carry those wrinkles around to over here as well, right on the, you know, we don't want to stop. His pants are wrapping around his leg over here, so let's carry those around as well. And don't make them all the same. Keep your cuts when you're doing these. You know, make them look slightly different on. You know, don't keep all the cuts the same. Kind of see over there. You don't keep them all exactly the same. Don't mirror these cuts to that side over here. You can you take them slightly different. I mean, it'll look somewhat the same, but you know, you want to kind of create a little bit of variety. There you go. We're just adding a little bit. You can see the detail in his pants are all kind of bunching up. You know, I'm going to come back in here and deepen the split in his pants a little bit more. what I do at the top of the split area of his pants is I'll come in here and I'll just kind of like what we did, just V it out on kind of like what we did on the knee and elbow. Just V it out a little bit. It looks like the pants are kind of separating at that point and pulling a little bit. Mentioned on the as the sleeves go into the pant, the shirt. Again, it's gonna the fabric's gonna start bunching up, so we put a line in there and we cut down to it to create that little bit of bunching. You can kind of see there how that went. And I'll carry it right around to the front as well. So it just looks, put a couple of them in there. So it looks like it's kind of bunching up a little bit. So there we go. We're adding all this little detail in there. Now for the hair, I'm going to add a little bit more rounding cuts with the smaller knife now. These again add a little texturing cuts to it. You kind of see. And then what we're going to do here is just split the bottom a little bit. So I come in here, I just start splitting it at the bottom a bit. That's all. And sometimes that's cuts like this are all you need. You go around and kind of cut it out like that. Same thing over here. Once I get those kind of cuts in place, what I do is I come back underneath of them at the bottom and I kind of make it look as if one strand is tucking behind the other. So like so. All right. Like over here, what if you see on this piece over here, what I'll do is I'll remove a little bit of wood over here, come back over there. So it just looks like, well, they don't just look like notches. It looks like they're kind of hair curving around the bottom. Like so. It just defines it more. So like on here, I'll come in here and I'll take a little triangular notch out of the base here, and maybe one over here. You kind of see it. And sometimes just breaking up the hair at the end like that is all you need. You don't have to put individual strands. You might carry a few of these up a little bit further, but it's not overly necessary. You gotta see how that is. That's kind of all you need sometimes. You want to carry a few up a little further, sure, you can do that, but you don't have to go too crazy with that. Maybe I'll do a couple up on this side, a couple up over here. You know, kind of like that. Try not to make them all look too uniform, you know. They should all be at kind of different heights and what have you. And we're going to do the same, you know, you have to kind of do the same on the front over here too. We'll put the little notches. His hair's coming down and around. Like I say, you don't really need a V-gouge. And for people who are getting into the hobby, hold off on buying a V-gouge right from the get-go. They're beneficial to some extent, but sometimes they create, the cuts they leave are very, generic looking. If you are comfortable, get comfortable using a knife, because you can do a lot with a knife as well. And if you're, and honestly, V-gouges, any kind of gouge for that matter, are really much more difficult to maintain. And just like knives, they need to be kept sharp. But I mean, you can get a V-gouge and go up here and do all that. That's fine too, and then come back and maybe add a little bit of knife work to it to enhance it. That's fine. A lot of people do that as well. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm going to take the top down just a little bit more. I think it's a little too, 80s hairband look right now. Actually, no, I'm looking at it. It's kind of got a cross between Jerry Garcia and Santa Claus. So then I keep coming back in here, and you can see what I'm doing. I'm taking my knife, and I'm just getting these little bit of, like I told you, these little scooping out cuts. And you can kind of see here how it adds that additional bit of texture to the piece. Why don't we look at adding some of those same kind of cuts to the shirt over here. Add a little wrinkles in here like it's tucking into his shirt, or excuse me, tucking into his pants. Maybe a couple over there. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. We'll see if I like that or not. I think they look too uniform to me. Put one kind of going in the opposite direction. I hope I'm giving you some ideas and it's not completely tedious and boring to watch. Something like that. Yeah, it's kind of, From the part area, smooth that out a little bit, and you can also use it as little scooping cuts on the top to kind of bring it all together. How about putting a pocket in the back over here? I'll just put a little line. Cut right down to it. Just like so. It's simple and easy. We'll do another one over here. A line. Cut down to it. V-neck. Let's give him a, we'll put a cut over here, bring it down just a little bit, and then maybe one over there, and one over there, something like that. And then we'll just kind of go in here and remove that wood. Coming along pretty good here. We can start adding a little bit of same kind of thing we did on the hair. Let's do that. Let's kind of do that idea in the beard over here. Just cut a little, make a little cuts into the beard, the bottom here. Same thing we did, like I said, the hair on the back and around the sides. Kind of like so, and then I come in like I did on the back here. I just kind of separate those strands a little bit more. Just what I do is like I did on the back, I kind of notch out the bottom as it comes into the shirt there, just to make it look like the hair is narrowing down a bit. Kind of see how that's looking. And we can come back in here and we can round these out a bit more, taper those cuts into the rest of the wood. For the mustache, we can add a couple little, why not? Add a couple little lines in here maybe. We'll just kind of split it out a bit more. You see how that is? Maybe one up here a little bit. Like that. Maybe a little bit on this side too. Again, it's adding a little bit of variety to it. I'm just kind of making it, look a little bit more like hair, kind of, like he's smiling underneath all that. And again, I'm just rolling the knife in and around under there just to add a little bit more texture and what have you. I like it to look like the hair, like it's sort of flowing around his face a little bit, Just adds a little bit of motion to it. In a static figure like this, creates a little bit of curves and what have you. Sometimes I'll come on underneath here and I'll undercut these just a bit more. Just kind of tucking it back up into the, I don't know if you can see from the side. It just, I think it looks good that way. I'm kind of liking the look of it. It's kind of fun looking. Now you look at it and you kind of figure out, you know, what else do you want to put in here? I think we can maybe do a little patch in his pants. Sometimes I like throwing that in there. We didn't leave a lot of room with the wrinkles. Maybe right here. I'm just going to draw a little kind of square right under these. Something like that. We can paint it a slightly different color. It just, again, add a little bit more variety to it. All I do is I come and I cut along those lines. I kind of angle the cut slightly inward, and then I come back and I go on that side of it, and I just remove a little chunk of wood on the inside part. So it kind of makes it'll help when you paint it. You kind of see there. And then the last one right over here. Just clean it up a bit. So I think we got pretty much a good figure in here. You know, the things I think we could do is deal with his boots a little bit. Let's see, what are we going to do with the boots? Why don't we just make it look like big boots he's got on. So I'm going to put little soles in here. I'm just going to roll my knife right around, kind of like so, and just cut down to that. You could have left them the way they were, you know, look like, I don't know, something else that he was wearing, some kind of, I don't know, would a guy like this be wearing slippers? Probably not. He's going to have boots on. So you kind of see how that looks over there. It just creates a bit of detail, and just roll those around. Like that. And for his pants here, let's just make sure we curve it around a bit more like so. There you go. I think that looks better. Now I would recommend you just kind of go back. You're going to see little areas like right in here maybe where you can kind of clean up some frayed wood. Just sharpen those cuts out a bit. Sometimes when you come to a corner like this, I like to go back in and reinforce it and then deepen that corner just a bit more. Like so. So I just go on both sides and I deepen that a bit. Like let's say right in here. I'll deepen this one and I'll deepen this one. And I'll just come back out and kind of take out that little bit of wood that I just on either side of that. Like so. It just kind of rounds it out a little bit better. I think I did it over here already. Yeah, I did. And then the rest of it just kind of clean up. I'll go back at this point, I'll look at it and see if I want to add any more detail to it to some extent. I don't think it's absolutely necessary. I think we can add plenty of detail in this little figure like that. And you can see now we can just, maybe clean up the hair a little bit more over here. But I'm not gonna monkey too much with that because actually I like the way it's looking. I think this is a little too big in here. I mentioned this in a number of videos. Sometimes hold your piece upside down and look at it, and you'll notice things that should be somewhat symmetrical that look suddenly off quite a bit, and then you can address them that way too. Kind of go back and, like I said, look at the wrinkles that you made. Any wood that needs to be cleaned up a bit. This is the time to do that. Now you're done. Just take your time. Another area, like when you have planes coming together, like right in here, same kind of thing. I put my knife in on each kind of corner of those things, and I kind of go back and then I just deepen that corner a bit more, like so. Still think it looks a little too thick down at the base here. Go a little bit better, because you got to figure the hair is going to be coming out. It's going to be going along the neck and then up, kind of curving down and, you know, around your back. So you want this to be a little bit scooped out. That's a little bit better. See how that looks? Right, that little bit. Sometimes little things like that make the piece. Well, maybe you don't think so, but I do. You know, it just kind of brings it all together, makes it look a little bit more natural. Okay, I'm pretty much finished with this one. The only thing I forgot is the eyebrows. You can see I did the one on this side over here. It's kind of same kind of idea we did with the hair. I start off, I just put little notches. And I kind of carve them around. Like so. I put the little notches in, and I do the same thing we did with the hair. I come back, and I just kind of clip out the top part of them. Just like so. Sometimes the eyebrows can really change the look of the figure a bit. The only other thing you might want to add is little wrinkle lines on the forehead. You can put a little cut in there, maybe. Another one over here, maybe. Just like that. You don't have to go too crazy with that. You could put a little indication of little wrinkles on the side of the eyes like that, on both sides. Little crow's feet type thing. You know, sometimes just a line or two down. You know, maybe another one down over here. Okay, I think that's, I think we got, I added just a little bit more detail in the hair. I kind of broke up the pieces at the bottom. You can kind of see, you know, a little bit more. Just went around just to add a little bit more, you know, look, the hair flowing around. Finish the eyebrows up. Get up the little wrinkles and everything all over the place. You know, you can kind of see it's. You just take your time and you can go through here and add as much or as little detail as you want. You might you know, you might want to add less detail. You might want to add more detail. You know, but I'm just kind of giving you an idea of the way I approach these type of figures. They're not all that difficult to do. They take a little time, just a little, but they're fun. They're relaxing, and it's a fun little thing to do. And you can be creative in the way you make the face look. And you kind of see here, he's got a sort of a sly grin on, I think. So I kind of like the look. But anyway, I hope you found that useful. Next week we're gonna paint this one up. So if you're interested in seeing how I paint them, stay tuned for that next week, and we'll go about the painting process. But That's really it for this video. I hope you found that useful. Let me know in the comments what you think of videos like this. I know they're long, but you know, if it's useful, let me know, because I'll be sure and look at future content in a similar fashion, and I'd be interested in knowing that. But that's really it for me this week. I hope you all have a great whittling week. Take care.